Hello everyone, my name is Gunkula Sneetu Reddy and today I'm going to perform musculoskeletal examination. Hello, I'm one of the second year medical student. My name is Gunkula Sneetu Reddy. May I know your name and age please?
My name is Thirmal Reddy, madam. My age is 50 years.
Okay. So what is your reason for your visit today?
Just routine checkup, madam.
Okay. Do you feel like any shoulder pain, knee pain, neck pain, any kind of pain in your body parts?
No, madam.
Okay. Now I'll proceed with the examination. Is it okay for you?
Okay.
Okay. Examination of the shoulders. Begin by inspecting the shoulder girdle or shoulder anteriorly. Inspect the scapulae and related muscles posteriorly. During both inspections, note any swelling, deformities, muscle atrophy, or tremors of the muscle. Now, palpate for tenderness at the sternoclavicular joint. Start tracing the clavicle laterally with your fingers. From behind, follow the bony spine of the scapula laterally and upward until it becomes the acromion, the summit of the shoulder. From there, palpate the acromioclavicular joint and from there down to the coracoid process of the scapula. Now, palpate the greater tubercle and the biceps tendon in the intertubercular groove, checking for any tenderness. Also, lift the humerus posteriorly so that you can palpate over the subacromial bursa and subdeltoid bursa and underlying palpable sits muscle. Sits include the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis. To evaluate the range of motion of the shoulders, ask the patient to perform the 6 motions of shoulder girdle. This include flexion where the patient raises his arm in front and overhead. Extension where he moves his arms behind. Abduction raising his arms out to the side and overhead. Adduction crossing an arm in front of his body. This also includes internal rotation by placing a hand behind his back to touch his shoulder blade, and external rotation by rotating an arm towards the ceiling from the shoulder level. If you suspect a problem, cup your hand over the patient's shoulders and feel for crepitus as the patient repeats the movements. The examination of the shoulders often calls for the patient to perform maneuvers to test specific motions and structures. This maneuver assesses the acromioclavicular joint and is sometimes called the crossover test. And the Apley scratch test tests overall shoulder rotation. Now, assess the rotator cuff. The most common source of shoulder pain, when positive, Neer's impingement sign suggests a rotator cuff sprain. Hawkins impingement sign also indicates rotator cuff sprain or tear. Now, for direct testing of the sits muscles to assess the supraspinatus, do the MT CAN test. To test for the function and pain in the infraspinatus, with this maneuver, ask the patient to press his hands against yours. Now test for forearm supination. Ask the patient to turn his arms around like he's holding a bowl of soup and start pressing. Ask the patient that he had any pain. Test the drop-arm sign by asking the patient to fully abduct the arm to shoulder level, that is to 90 degrees, and then to lower it slowly. When positive, this test suggests rotator cuff sprain, partial tear or full tear depending upon the severity or loss of function. Examine the elbow. Support the patient's forearm so that the elbow is flexed to about 70 degrees. Inspect and palpate the elbow, including the medial and lateral epicondyles. The olecranon process in the groove between the epicondyles and the extensor surface of the ulnar. Note any nodules or swelling that suggest olecranon bursitis or arthritis. Normally, you cannot palpate either the synovium or the olecranon bursa. Note any tenderness or effusion as well as any displacement of the olecranon or the olecranon process. Particularly, next, assess the range of motion of the patient's elbows. To test flexion and extension, have the patient bend and straighten his elbows to check supination and pronation. Ask the patient to flex his elbow at 90 degrees and turn his palms up and then down. Examination of the wrist and hands. Observe the position of the hands in the motion to see if movements are smooth and natural. When fingers are relaxed, they should be slightly flexed. Inspect the patient's wrists and hands, noting any swelling over the joints as well as any deformities or angulation. Observe the contours of the palm, namely the thenar and hypothenar eminences. Note any thickening of tendons. Now, palpate the distal radius and ulnar on the lateral and medial surfaces of the wrist. Palpate the radial styloid bone and the anatomical snuff box. Pain when palpating the snuff box suggests a scaphoid fracture. Palpate over the 8 carpal bones lying distal to the wrist joint and then each metacarpal phalangeal joint. Compress the metacarpophalangeal joint by squeezing the hand from each side between the thumb and fingers. Note any tenderness, swelling, or budginess. Now, palpate the medial and lateral aspects of each of the proximal interphalangeal joints between the thumb and index finger, noting any swelling, budginess, bony enlargement, or tenderness. Using the same techniques, examine the distal interphalangeal joints. Repeat the same procedure on the other hand. To check the range of motion of the wrists and hands, begin with flexion and extension. Ask the patient to turn his hand palms up and then to bring the fingers towards his face and then flat and then downward towards his toes. Now, continue to assess the range of wrist movement with adduction and abduction. Ask the patient to palm down and bring his wrist flat position and then ask to turn it away and towards him. If there are any complaints of wrist pain suggesting carpal tunnel syndrome, test sensation by assessing the median nerve in the pulp of the index finger, the ulnar nerve in the pulp of the fifth finger, and the radial nerve in the dorsal web space of the thumb and the index finger. The other tests include the hand grip strength. Ask the patient to squeeze your hands as hard as he can. This test is to determine the strength of the patient's fingers. To check the wrist pain, ask the patient to grab his thumb into his palm and squeeze it. Make note of any wrist pain with extension of the wrist towards the midline in the older deviation or a positive Frankenstein test for de Quervain's tenosynovitis. Now, perform the test for carpal tunnel syndrome. First, using thumb abduction, ask the patient to lift his thumb out against force of your thumb. Now, test for Tinel sign for median nerve compression. Tap and ask the patient that he have any pain in his second, third and fourth fingers or any kind of tingling. Now, ask the patient to put the backs of his two hands together to test for medial nerve compression. This test is called the Phelan test. If there is a problem, the patient must have pain in his second, third and fourth fingers or any kind of tingling. None are noted in this patient. Examining the knees. With the patient supine on the examining table and with his knees in flexion, inspect the knees, noting their alignment or any deformities. Note the loss of normal hollows around the patella or atrophy of the quadriceps muscle. Then straighten the patient leg and palpate the suprapatellar pouch on each side of the quadriceps, noting any swelling. Now, palpate the tibial femoral joint, the edge of the tibial plateau, and the margins of the joint. Note any irregular bony ridges. Now, palpate the medial meniscus, then palpate the lateral meniscus. Tenderness suggests a partial tear. With the knee flexed 90 degrees, assess the medial joint compartments for any tenderness. Palpate the medial femoral condyle, the adductor tubercle, and the medial tibial plateau. Also palpate and identify the medial collateral ligament. Now, assess the lateral joint compartment and palpate the lateral femoral condyle, the lateral tibial plateau, and the lateral collateral ligament. Now, assess the range of motion of each knee beginning with the flexion and extension. Be sure to provide a support as needed. Now, check the internal and external rotation of the knee. Instruct the sitting patient to swing the lowered leg towards the midline and away from the midline. To test the medial collateral ligament or MCL, perform the abduction or valgus stress test, where you move the thigh 30 degrees laterally to the side of the examination table. Push medially against the knee and pull laterally at the ankle to open the knee joint on the medial side. To test the lateral collateral ligament or LCL, perform the adduction or the varus stress test, where you push laterally against the knee and pull medially at the ankle to open the knee joint on the lateral side. To test the anterior cruciate ligament or ACL, check for the anterior drawer sign, where you draw the tibia forward and observe if it slides forward like a drawer from under the femur. Now, to test the posterior cruciate ligament or PCL, check for posterior drawer sign, where you push the tibia posteriorly and observe the degree of backward movement on the femur. Lachman test. To perform this test, make sure the patient is supine in position. Make sure the patient knee is flexed at 30 degrees. Fixate the femur with the outer hand, bring the tibia into slight external rotation, and then try to translate the tibia anteriorly. Bull sign. Make sure the patient is supine and legs are extended and muscles are relaxed. Sweep the medial recess of the knee joint upward such that any fluid is displaced from the medial side. The examiner then swipes his or her hand from the suprapatellar pouch laterally and downward on the lateral recess of the knee joint to push fluid back into the medial side. There will be a bulge appears in the medial recess. Ballooning the patella. Make sure the patient is in supine position with fully extended leg and muscles relaxed. Then stroke downward just until you reach the suprapatellar pouch and press downward. With the other hand, perform the same movement and stop just below the apex of the patella. While applying downward pressure, take one finger and press onto the patella and see whether it's floating. If the patella is floating, it means fluid has been accumulated under it and it is an indication of swelling in the knee joint.